I told my son I was broke and needed to sell the house. He said, "Finally, I've been waiting for this." I wasn't broke. I was testing him. The next morning, I overheard him on the phone telling someone the price he already had in mind. What he said next left me unable to speak. I'd noticed things for months before any of this started. Questions about the house that were a little too specific for someone who was supposedly just checking in. A comment about how much square footage I didn't need anymore now that I lived alone. A passing remark about how the neighborhood had come up in value, dropped casually enough I almost missed it the first time. There was a conversation about the business sale too. An offhand question about whether the proceeds had come in as a lump sum or as an installment arrangement spread over years. The kind of question that sounds like curiosity until you notice how precisely it's aimed. I didn't think much of any single moment. It was the accumulation that got my attention. The way small curiosities start to form a shape if you let them sit long enough instead of explaining each one away individually. So I built a test, nothing elaborate. I asked my accountant to help me put together a version of my finances that told a different story than the real one. A story where the business hadn't done as well as people assumed, where the savings had thinned out over a couple of rough years, where selling the house wasn't a choice so much as the obvious next step for a man looking at his situation honestly. I spent an evening going over the fictional numbers until they were consistent enough to survive a follow-up question. A sale that had cleared debts and little else. A savings account drawn down to something under $30,000. I wanted the numbers straight in my own head before I said anything out loud, so the conversation would hold together if anyone pushed on it. I invited my son over for dinner on a Sunday, just the two of us. We ate, talked about nothing important, and then over coffee I told him. I said the business hadn't recovered the way I'd hoped, that the savings were nearly gone, that I didn't see another way around it. I was going to have to sell the house I'd lived in for 30 years. I watched his face while I said it, the way you watch someone's face when you already suspect what you're going to see. He said one word before he could stop it. Finally, I've been waiting for this. And then he caught himself, and the recovery started almost immediately. The backpedaling, the claim that he'd misspoken, that he only meant he was relieved the truth was finally out in the open, that we'd figure this out together, that he wanted to help. He talked for a few minutes in that careful tone people use when they're trying to walk a sentence back after it's already landed somewhere it wasn't supposed to. I let him think I believed the walk back. I nodded along. I thanked him for offering to help. I told him I appreciated him being there. He stayed in the guest room that night instead of driving home, which he offered to do himself, and which I said sounded fine. I am an early riser, always have been. Decades of habit from running a business where the first calls came before 6 in the morning, and retirement never changed that particular clock in me. I was in the kitchen with coffee well before dawn broke, standing at the counter in the gray light before sunrise, when I heard him go outside through the side door, thinking he had privacy on the flagstone path along the house. He did not have privacy. That path runs directly under the kitchen window, and I have lived in this house long enough to know exactly how sound carries along that wall on a still morning. I heard him dial. I heard him say good morning in the clipped, business-like voice he uses with people he isn't bothering to charm. And then I heard him lay out numbers like he was reading them off a spreadsheet, precise and unhurried. A man who had clearly rehearsed this before making the call. The house would move for $900 easily in this market, he said. Maybe more if it was presented well. But if he got in first, ahead of any realtor, with a friendly offer framed as a fair deal from a family contact, I'd probably take $750 and never know the difference. I stood at my own counter with my coffee going cold and did not move. Then his voice dropped lower, and he said the part that actually stopped me, the part I am still turning over. He said not to worry about his brother finding out, that he already had a plan in place